Your mindset is quietly creating or destroying your life minute by minute. There is no neutral zone. There is no such thing as a neutral thought. Any thought you allow to take root in your mind, whether positive or negative, is growing, multiplying, and shaping your emotions, decisions, actions, and ultimately your destiny. You could live your whole life without knowing what kind of seeds you're planting in your mind, but the truth doesn't care about your awareness. What you think is less important than what you allow to stay in your head every single day. The mind is like fertile soil. It has no choice but to grow whatever you plant in it. If you sow doubt, fear, inferiority, resentment, don't be surprised when your life becomes filled with chaos, limitations, and darkness. Don't blame your circumstances, other people, or the times you live in. You are the one who unconsciously nurtured those bad seeds by failing to recognize them from the start, and then you let them stay too long. Gave them energy through your silence. Let them repeat every morning when you woke up without resistance. The most dangerous thing is you let it happen. But that same piece of soil, when you plant confidence, perseverance, gratitude, and aspiration into it, your entire inner world begins to change. You won't need to force positivity. You won't need to pretend to be strong. You just need to plant the right things at the right time, consistently each day, and your mind will become a powerful ally instead of a silent saboteur. Your life is the most honest mirror, reflecting the mental architecture you build every day. That's not just a philosophy, it's a psychological law. The problem is, most people don't consciously choose the seeds they plant in their mental field. They let society, the news, social media, criticism, and even past wounds take over the sowing process, and then when they see their lives in disarray, they blame the world, without realizing they've allowed others to plow their mental soil for years. They didn't stand guard. They weren't vigilant about what was allowed into their minds each day. If you wake up and the first thing you do is check your phone, letting in waves of negative news, images of other people's success, or petty complaints on social media, then don't wonder why your energy drops, why you feel not good enough, why you can't move forward. There's nothing mysterious about it. You're simply reflecting exactly what you've been feeding yourself. And here's the core truth. What you feed your mind is just as important as what you feed your body. Food nourishes the body. Thoughts nourish your destiny. If you're not careful about what you think, your mind will become a dumping ground full of biases, fears, comparisons, resentments, and shame. And you'll live your entire life stuck in a cycle you don't understand, always returning to square one. Despite your efforts, your sacrifices, your persistence, pause for a second and ask yourself, in the past 24 hours, what thoughts have you planted in your mind? Have you truly observed and directed the stream of thoughts that pass through each hour? Or have you let anything show up, believing by default, this is just who I am? This is where intentionality becomes the key. You don't need to be perfect to start changing. You just need to start standing guard. Let each morning become a moment of deliberate planting. Read a few lines of a book that refines your thinking. Listen to something uplifting. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. Don't underestimate that small gesture. One seed planted each day. After 30 days, becomes a sprout. After 90 days, a tree. After a year, a forest. And after several years, your life will look completely different simply because you chose to plant the right seeds every single day. You might say, I'm too busy, but you're never too busy to worry, to compare, to repeat the same thought patterns. You don't lack time, you're just using your time the wrong way. You spend your time thinking about things that weaken you, then complain that you're not strong enough. You don't realize you're making poor investments with your thinking. The painful truth is, if you don't train your own mind, the world will do it for you, and it won't be kind. From this moment on, you don't need to do anything grand. You only need to do one thing. Choose carefully which thoughts you allow to reside in your mind. Every time a negative thought shows up, ask yourself, Is this thought serving me or holding me back? If it's not making you stronger, calmer, braver, reject it like you would a rotten meal. Don't let your brain digest unhealthy thoughts and turn them into actions that sabotage your life. Your life doesn't reflect the dreams you write down, it reflects the thoughts you allow to stay every day. If you want to change your life, don't just start with goals, start by guarding your mind. Because you're not living according to what you know, you're living according to what you think most often. It's not the world that hurts you, it's your thoughts about the world that break you. And not everyone needs to know what you're trying to change. The more important thing is whether you're planting the right seeds in your mind each day. Because the mind is a field, and whatever you plant, you will reap. No exceptions, no shortcuts. Only one question remains for you to face. What have you planted in your mind today? You may desire a positive life, but if you leave your mind untrained day after day, it's no different than planting a garden and abandoning it to grow wild with weeds. An untrained mind does not stay still, it drifts, and when it drifts, it rarely drifts toward beauty. It tends to wander into the lands of fear, doubt, comparison, sorrow, and procrastination. That's the natural tendency of the brain when left without direction. It seeks what is easy, familiar, and negative, not because you're weak, but because you've never reprogrammed it to serve you. No one wakes up each morning with a naturally positive mind. That's not a gift. It's the result of deliberate training. You cannot expect to think clearly, act decisively, and live positively in an environment where you allow yourself daily exposure to negativity, distraction, and chaos. You cannot build a positive lifestyle if every morning starts with diving into social media, absorbing complaints, reading toxic news, and letting all of that shape your initial emotional state. Face it, if you do not master your brain, your life will be led by unchecked thoughts, and the problem isn't you. It's the absence of a system you've designed to properly nourish your mind. Just as an untrained body weakens over time, an untrained mind becomes sluggish, negative, and easily swayed by fleeting emotions. Many people live with passive minds, constantly reacting to the world instead of actively shaping their inner world. They let everything outside steer them, then wonder why their lives are always chaotic. In truth, the human mind is an open system. Every day it absorbs thousands of data units from what you hear, see, think, and speak. If you don't filter carefully, you're silently allowing garbage to enter your mind in the form of meaningless conversations, unsettling news, criticisms, and old painful memories. And if you think that's harmless, remember, anything repeated daily becomes a belief. Negative beliefs are the fastest way to kill your inner potential. In contrast, those who live proactively do so not because they don't face challenges, but because they refuse to let their minds operate on default mode. They build daily habits like mental athletes, waking up 30 minutes early to read something valuable, rewriting goals, listening to inspiring talks, or simply sitting in silence for 10 minutes to reframe their thoughts. These small actions are how they actively fine-tune their operating system, day after day. A neglected brain won't help you make wise decisions. It will opt for what's easy, near, and familiar, even if that path is dragging you backward. It will react automatically rather than thoughtfully. It will make you doubt yourself, even though you're fully capable of overcoming the challenge. That's why many talented people remain stuck. It's not a lack of ability, it's the lack of a strong mind to lead the way. You cannot live positively when each day you continue to unconsciously feed a system of negative thinking. Positivity is not an emotion, it is the result of a trained thought system. One of the most dangerous illusions is believing that things will get better over time. Time does not heal what you do not repair. Time only makes your negative patterns grow deeper roots. If you do not actively intervene in the way your mind operates, then old internal programs, generational fears, painful memories, limits learned from others, will continue to run you without your awareness. And that's when you end up living someone else's life, driven by someone else's fears, within the limits that society unconsciously imposed upon you. You must understand this. Every minute you spend training your thinking, you're sending a signal to your brain. I am the leader of my life, and the brain, designed to serve its commander, will begin restructuring itself accordingly. It will filter information more precisely, slow down its reactions to negative stimuli, and heighten its sensitivity to opportunity. The mind is like a machine. If you want different results, you must change the input. Don't expect a positive life if every day you feed your brain with data that weakens you. You don't need to meditate for hours or read hundreds of books to retrain your mind. Just spend 15 minutes each morning before the world starts speaking to read a page of a book, write down something you're grateful for, review your goals, or quietly repeat to yourself a positive belief. This won't take much of your time, but it will give you back a day lived with intention, a mind with direction, and a body that responds in its strongest form. Remember, what repeats silently will create massive results in the future. People don't become resilient overnight. They simply do one right thing long enough, consistently enough, and seriously enough until the mind is no longer a source of confusion, but becomes a sharp weapon that helps them move forward without pause. You cannot live positively with a neglected mind. But you can absolutely flip the script, starting with one simple choice: stop neglecting your mind and start leading it. Only when you master your mind can you master your future. And the miracle is, you don't have to know everything. You just have to start training it deliberately today. Every small action you repeat in silence is quietly shaping the person you're becoming. It's not the grand plans, the New Year's resolutions, or the bursts of inspiration after watching a motivational video. It's what you choose to do on ordinary days. That's where your true identity is formed. You don't grow in moments of explosion. You grow through intentional repetition, even when no one is watching. The person you're becoming is not determined by a big dream, but by seemingly trivial choices. How do you start your day? What do you give your time to? How do you respond to things that irritate you? How do you speak to yourself when you make a mistake? These questions, if you're brave enough to answer them honestly, clearly reflect the direction you're heading. Many people long for a different life, but don't dare change what they do every day. They want new results while keeping their old operating system. They rely on luck rather than behavior. But the truth is simple and unforgiving. Your life does not reflect what you wish for, it reflects what you repeat. Behavior creates habits. Habits shape character, and character defines destiny. You can read a great book, take notes on pages of profound philosophy, nod in agreement at every sentence. But if you don't act, those words are just decorative upgrades for your procrastination. Information has no value unless turned into motion. Ideas don't change you, only repeated actions do. And you can't fake it. Your body, your emotions, your energy, they all know exactly what you do each day. You cannot deceive yourself. A lazy person knows they're living below their true potential. A procrastinator always feels a vague, nameless sense of guilt. It's not due to a lack of talent. It's due to a lack of daily discipline. Discipline isn't rigidity, it's self-respect. When you do the right thing, even if it's small, even if no one knows, you're sending a signal to your brain. I deserve a better version of myself. People tend to overestimate what they can do in a week, but underestimate the power of consistency over a year. You read 10 pages today and feel no difference. But if you do that daily for a year, you'll have read over 3,600 pages, equal to 15 to 20 books. And what matters isn't just the number of books, but the subtle transformation in how you think, speak, analyze, and decide. Those who appear wise weren't born that way. They simply stuck to the right habit for long enough. Look at how you spend a single day. How many minutes do you invest in growth? How many in drifting? How many in uncontrolled distraction? These numbers don't just reflect habits. They are building you hour by hour. And If you're not satisfied with the person you're becoming, don't blame yourself or make excuses. Start by changing the smallest habit and keep it uninterrupted. Every successful person you admire doesn't have perfect habits. They only have one thing in common, a boring level of consistency with the right actions. They don't let fleeting emotions dictate their behavior. They don't wait for inspiration to start working. They don't make excuses when results are slow. They do the work, and they keep doing it. They understand that simply getting up in the morning and choosing to do the right thing again and again will take them further than someone more talented or luckier, but undisciplined. You can be full of ambition, but if you don't turn that ambition into a daily system of action, you'll forever live in the in-between zone, where you know you could be better, but still can't move forward. And that slowly becomes a mental burden. Because the most painful thing isn't falling behind others, it's living beneath your own potential. So don't underestimate small actions. Journaling, reading, exercising, intentional thinking, encouraging self-talk. Each of these is a brick you're laying to build a new version of yourself, strong, confident, and mature. You don't need to change everything at once. Just pick one good habit and do it every day until it's no longer effort, but part of who you are. The deepest transformation doesn't happen during big events, but through quiet, consistent action. Who you are becoming is not shaped by your highs, but by the moments when you're tired, uninspired, and still choose to do the right thing. That's where character is forged. That's when resilience is built. And that's why disciplined people are trustworthy. They've trained themselves through days when no one was cheering them on. If you want to change your life, don't just look at the goal. Look at your daily routine. What you do today is writing the next chapter of your life story. Don't let old habits steal your new future. Don't let procrastination disguise itself as a reason. And don't let a day go by without doing something to make yourself just 1% better. Because in the end, what you do every day is quietly creating the person you are becoming. And if you stay consistent with the right thing, you will become someone you once thought was impossible. You can read hundreds of books, listen to thousands of hours of podcasts, and fill notebooks with deep philosophical quotes. But if you don't take action, all of it is just a sophisticated form of procrastination, cleverly wrapped in the label of self-development. Information doesn't make you excellent, only behavior does. You don't lack knowledge, you're simply delaying the use of it. And the more that delay is covered with the appearance of being eager to learn, the more it deceives you into thinking you're progressing, when in fact you're standing still with a treasure trove you never actually use. There's a subtle form of self-deception, the feeling of, I'm doing something. When you scroll through motivational videos, nod at each powerful quote, and then go on living the same way, no one taxes learning. But when you learn too much without applying it, you're using it to hide instead of move forward. You choose to absorb inspiration like a sedative rather than a jolt into action. And you don't realize you're trapping yourself in a cycle. Inspiration, excitement, no action, guilt, and back again to seeking inspiration. Knowledge has no value until it changes your habits. A valuable lesson only truly reaches you when it forces you to confront yourself and adjust a specific behavior. Everything else is just intellectual decoration. Successful people don't learn to become smarter, they learn to act better. And they don't measure progress by how much content they consume, but by how many specific actions they've executed as a result of that content. You can't measure your growth by how many clever quotes you've written down or how many motivational lines you've memorized. The real question is, what have I changed after reading or hearing this? If the answer is nothing, then you're stuck in the illusion of growth. You're accumulating without circulating, and anything stored for too long without use becomes excess, sometimes even toxic. The more you know without doing, the more you begin to doubt yourself, because deep down, you know you should have changed. You don't need more knowledge, you need to apply what you already know. If someone reads just one book, deeply understands it, and turns it into a daily system of action, they'll go much farther than someone who reads 10 books and applies nothing. Depth is always more powerful than breadth, if you can turn it into movement. So instead of asking, is there another good book to read? Ask, what have I implemented from what I read last week? And if you begin answering that question honestly, you'll realize that much of the motivation you felt in the past was wasted. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you weren't decisive enough to turn that motivation into action. Inspiration is fleeting. It won't stay unless reinforced by execution. And if you keep chasing motivation without doing the hard work, you'll remain trapped in that hazy zone between knowing a lot and doing very little. Have you ever wondered why some people who are less educated or less informed than you seem more confident and go further in life? It's because they don't wait until they feel ready. They act before confidence arrives. They use action as a way to train belief. And over time, their consistency allows them to surpass those who are smarter but stuck in researching just a little more. Learning only truly matters when it drives you to change something specific, even if it's small. Waking up 15 minutes earlier, cutting out a bad habit, sending that long-delayed important email, stopping complaints during stress, or simply learning to breathe correctly when anxiety strikes. These small shifts, repeated consistently, are the real indicators of progress, not the hours you've spent listening to someone else speak. The greatest danger of the information age is not a lack of knowledge, but a surplus of knowledge with a deficit of action. You can search anything in 5 seconds, but you can't download a real result unless you step into experience. And here's a hard truth. Every time you postpone taking action because you feel not ready, you're weakening your own confidence. You're sending the brain a signal, I know, but I won't dare. And over time, that becomes your default. If you want to be more confident, stop trying to learn more. Start doing sooner. You don't need a perfect plan. You need the courage to start with imperfect action. People often think action follows belief, but in reality, belief follows action. Take the first step and you'll start believing you can take more. That's the only positive loop worth pursuing. From now on, give yourself a simple rule. Whenever you learn something new, you must apply at least one specific action within 24 hours. If not, treat it as though you haven't learned anything. It sounds simple, but it draws a clear line between you, the one who acts, and the masses who continue to accumulate in order to delay. Because in the end, knowledge won't save you from failure. Only action will. And learning without doing, though it may sound noble, is still just procrastination gilded in gold. If you truly want to progress, act faster than your doubt, and let your repeated actions, not your stockpile of knowledge, tell the world who you really are. Negative thoughts don't simply vanish. They don't dissolve because you pray harder, nor do they fade just because you wish for positivity. They exist as deeply embedded mental habits in your daily thinking. And like any habit, they only weaken when you consistently act in opposition to what they whisper into your ear. The more you sit and analyze, the more you sink into a spiral of stagnation. The more you think, the less you do. And when you do nothing, negative thoughts rush in to fill the void. The brain doesn't know how to be silent. It always needs direction. If you don't give it clear commands through action, it will automatically revert to old thought patterns, ones filled with doubt, self-criticism, vague anxiety, and innate fear. Don't blame yourself for having negative thoughts. That's human. But allowing them to dictate your behavior, that's the real concern. And the only way to take back control isn't to think more positively, but to do something positive, even when your thoughts are negative. Action is what disrupts the loop of unhelpful thinking. When you start doing, even something small, you no longer have energy left to fuel worry. Once you engage in a task, you shift your attention from vague emotions to a specific action, and specificity always beats chaos. One small step forward is infinitely more powerful than 100 internal questions like, can I really do this? Because every time you act, you're sending your mind a message. I am a doer, not a passive observer. The more you sit still, the more you create a breeding ground for negative thoughts. They're like mold. They grow in darkness and stillness. Action is the light and the flow. When you work, move, and produce results, you force your mind to adapt to a new signal. And that signal is living proof that you are no longer the person you were yesterday. Most people think they need to get mentally stable first before doing anything, but in reality, it's the opposite. Only by doing do you regain mental stability. Action brings clarity. Action builds momentum. Action pulls you out of the world of imagined problems and into reality, where issues begin to take shape and solutions start to reveal themselves. Negative thoughts never show up once and leave. They're a constant undercurrent, fed by hesitation, fear, and inaction. You can't erase them completely, but you can weaken them to the point where they no longer control your behavior. And that only happens when you do more than you think. You don't have to wait until you feel confident. You just need the first small action, and let it carry you forward. There will be days when you feel like you have no energy. Your mind will be filled with doubt, and everything will feel pointless. That is the most crucial time to take a small step. Stand up, tidy your desk, write down 3 things you need to do, drink a glass of water, take a 5-minute walk. The smaller the action, the better, as long as it goes against the thought that has you stuck. And you'll witness something magical. Just one action can begin to shift your entire mental state. Negative thoughts aren't as dangerous as your belief that they're true. In reality, they're just suggestions. A voice from an untrained part of your mind. You have the right to ignore it. But ignoring doesn't mean yelling back or trying harder to think positive. It means doing the exact opposite of what it tells you. If it says you're not good enough, act like you are. If it says you'll fail, take a step as if success has already begun. Your behavior, not your thoughts, determines who you really are. You don't have to erase every negative thought to live well. You only need to stop letting them steer your life. And that happens when you build a chain of positive actions each day, stronger, heavier, and more stable than any random thought that shows up in your head. When your behavior becomes a system, negative thoughts lose their grip because they no longer carry the same weight. And once you begin living this way, action first, thought later, you'll realize that confidence doesn't come from applause. It comes from keeping small promises to yourself every day. One completed task is one brick of renewed belief. One finished action is one layer of a new identity. And when that repetition builds, you no longer need to try to be positive. You simply become positive. No strain, no pretending. Remember, you don't need to feel okay to take action. It's the repetition of action, especially on the days when you don't feel like it, don't feel inspired, don't feel certain, that creates your breakthrough. The more you act when your mind tells you to stop, the stronger you become than your past self. And eventually, you'll look back at the old version of you, once ruled by negative thoughts, and smile. I never had to fight them. I just had to act. And keep acting, because negative thoughts don't disappear, but they weaken drastically when you act consistently, without negotiation. And in the end, they'll have no power left, just a faint echo of a habit that no longer holds you. One lazy day won't ruin your future. One morning of sleeping in won't make you a failure. One skipped workout, one delayed task, one forgotten goal won't make you lose everything. What truly kills a dream is the habit of missing. A single day of absence isn't dangerous. But when it turns into a silent string of days, that's when things begin to break down without you realizing it. When you miss once, you often tell yourself, it's okay, I'll get back to it tomorrow. But that feeling of it's okay is exactly what you need to watch out for. It creates an illusion of safety, lulls you into complacency, and slowly steals your sense of urgency about your own life. One skipped day easily leads to a second, then a third. And in just a few weeks, you've reconstructed an older version of yourself, the one you worked so hard to overcome. Not because you're weak, but because the consequences have been growing quietly beneath the surface. Everyone who's ever abandoned their goals never planned to give up. They just paused for a bit, then paused again, until that pause became a lifestyle. They didn't fail in one crash. They failed because they didn't get back up fast enough. And by the time they looked back, they had drifted far from the self they once built, far from the disciplines that once held them steady. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to win every day. But you must maintain your rhythm, a rhythm that is structured, committed, and shows signs that you are steering the flow of your own life. Even if you lose a day, what matters most is how quickly you return. Everyone stumbles. Some bounce back in a day. Others take a week. Some disappear for 3 months and blame it on life being unfair. Strength doesn't lie in never going off track. It lies in returning to alignment before you drift too far. Habits are not just what you do, but also what you fail to do. And the days you're absent, even if no one notices, even if no one judges, are silently carving themselves into your identity. Every time you don't do what's right, you're sending your mind the signal, it's fine, I allow this. And when that allowance repeats, it becomes a new standard, a lower standard than what you truly deserve. You might look around and see plenty of people living just fine without discipline, but you weren't made to be average. You have a higher standard, not because someone imposed it on you, but because you've touched a better version of yourself. You've lived days of clarity, strength, mastery over your time and thoughts. You've felt the pride of sticking to a plan, the strength of keeping a promise to yourself. And if you've ever lived that way, you can't pretend it's okay to live beneath that standard for too long. One missed day is a dropped opportunity. But if you're aware, the next day can restore everything. What kills you is not the mistake, it's the prolonged surrender. When you stop fighting, when you stop reminding yourself, when you stop keeping the flame alive, that's when you're truly defeated, not by the world, but by a form of self-forgiveness that turns into compromise. Forgiveness doesn't mean giving up. Forgiveness means rising again, not retreating. You must clearly distinguish between intentional rest and rationalized laziness. You can absolutely take a break, rest to recharge, to recover, and come back stronger, but not to escape from what you know must be done. Everyone has down moments, but those who lead their lives don't allow themselves to stay down for too long. They have an internal warning system, a code of discipline that doesn't bend, a silent oath that cannot be broken. One day without your positive habits is one day you let the negative ones creep back in. And negative habits don't need an invitation, just a crack in the door. They sneak in quietly through small things, hitting snooze, skipping breakfast, delaying the first 15 minutes of your morning, watching pointless videos before starting work. You think you're resting, but you're actually drifting from your trajectory without realizing it. The only thing you need to remember is this: consistency is not measured by performance, but by your ability to return after a slip. Everyone fails, but successful people return to their rhythm, hold the system, and don't let missed days become a pattern. They know no one loses because of one bad day. People lose because they let one bad day become a lifestyle. So don't fear missing once. Fear becoming okay with missing. That's when you start losing your standards. And once standards shift, every other choice will follow. Your life, in the long run, is not shaped by brief flashes of brilliance, but by the silent habits you maintain or neglect every single day. If you miss today, don't beat yourself up. But don't let tomorrow follow the same path. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain average is not speed, but stability. And stability is built from never being absent for too long. You can rest for a day, but never let your absence become routine, because that, not the occasional misstep, is what quietly destroys you. You can't move forward if you keep looking back. You can't steer your life into the future with your eyes glued to the rearview mirror of the past. What happened doesn't have to be a life sentence unless you choose to turn it into shackles. Who you are today doesn't have to carry the image of who you once were. But that's only true if you're brave enough to let go of the things that should have been buried long ago. The past can teach you, but it has no right to control you. It's meant to be a guide, not the driver, and yet many people live as if they're stuck on an old recording, replaying mistakes, pain, failures, like they've found their identity in suffering. They're not trapped by what happened. They're trapped by their unwillingness to stop telling the same old story in their heads. The more you revisit the wound, the slower it heals. The more you replay the mistake, the deeper it takes root in your identity. And the more you believe you're a victim of the past, the more powerless you become. Here's the truth. What's done is done. You can think about it 1,000 times, hurt over it 100 more, but you can't rewind time. So why allow something unchangeable to block your path forward? The only thing you can control is how you respond to that memory today. Every time it resurfaces, you have a choice to hurt again or to learn something and move on. The past doesn't return on its own. You invite it in. Some people are haunted by mistakes, poor decisions, broken relationships, or missed opportunities. But what hurts more is their grip on it as if it's a necessary part of how they see themselves. I failed becomes, so I don't deserve success. I hurt someone becomes, so I don't deserve happiness. This is what you must recognize with clarity. You're not imprisoned by your past. You're staying there by choice. You may have made mistakes, but you are not that mistake. You may have fallen, but you are not the fall. You are the one who got up, the one still walking, the one trying day by day to live differently. And that deserves recognition, not from others, but from yourself. Self-forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's refusing to let what happened define your worth today. Thinking about the past won't make you grow. Learning from it and acting differently will. Some people spend years healing, but what they're really doing is reopening the wound every day. A wound can't close if you keep picking at it. A memory can't fade if you keep reliving it. You don't have to pretend everything's fine, but you must stop letting what's broken define your future. The truth is, you'll never feel ready to let go if you wait for the pain to disappear. Letting go isn't an emotional result, it's an intentional act. You choose to release because you know holding on no longer serves where you're going. You don't have to forget everything. You just have to stop fueling the old memory. Remember this. Pain only stays alive when you continue feeding it through recall. If you failed, let it be proof that you were brave enough to try. If you were rejected, let it remind you that you had the courage to show up. If you were wrong, let it teach you, not sentence you. Everyone has a past, but only those who dare to release it have a future. Picture yourself driving, but instead of watching the road, you're staring into the rearview mirror. What will happen? You'll crash into something you never saw coming. Life is the same. If you keep staring at what's behind, you'll miss every opportunity unfolding now. You won't see who loves you. You won't notice the doors that have opened. You won't hear the voice of your better self calling you forward. Don't let one part of your life ruin all the rest. You have the power to choose what stays and what must go. And if you truly want to live a new life, you cannot carry old baggage with you. Look the past in the eye, thank it, and close that door. Not because you deny it, but because you've honored the lesson and you understand life can only happen forward. From now on, every time a negative memory pulls you back, ask, does this help me move forward or pull me down? And if it doesn't help you rise, let it go. You no longer live in that moment, only your mind does. It's time to return to the driver's seat. Look ahead, adjust your course, and live like you know you're worthy of a new journey. one where the past no longer sets your direction, because you can't drive if you keep looking in the rearview mirror. And you can't fully live today if you cling to yesterday. Freedom isn't something distant. It starts with a single decision. I no longer define myself by what happened. And that decision, repeated long enough, will become the greatest power you'll ever own. Everyone carries some form of pain. It could be a fated relationship, an unfinished dream, a betrayal, or simply words that once took root in your self-worth. We don't choose what happened, but we always have the power to choose how we continue living with it. Some pain no longer even exists in the present, but we still live as if it does, not because it's too heavy, but because we've never truly let it go. Memory won't kill you, but the way you hold on to it can drain your vitality day after day. When you don't detach from old wounds, you unknowingly allow them to consume the life force of your present moment. That pain becomes a low, persistent background noise in your mind, making you second-guess yourself, shrink your decisions, approach new opportunities with excessive caution, and sometimes refuse to believe in goodness at all. You're no longer truly living. You're reacting to a past wound. What's truly frightening isn't what you went through. It's allowing that wound to shape the way you see the world today. You smile less, love slower, trust with hesitation, and every time someone gets close, you take a step back. Not because they've done anything wrong, but because someone in your past once hurt you. You assume that to stay safe, the best strategy is to stay closed. But the cost of that safety is blocked energy, no longer flowing toward the future, but tied up in the past. Detaching from pain doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means consciously peeling away the layers of frozen emotion. You don't need to forget. You just need to stop feeding it. Every time you retell the same story as proof of injustice, you're refueling the very pain you want to heal. But when you look back with honesty and ask, what did this teach me? You begin the transformation. Unprocessed pain doesn't sit quietly. It seeps into your inner voice, filters how you see yourself, and affects every decision. If you've been rejected, you'll start to believe you're unworthy. If you've failed before, you'll begin limiting yourself to only safe options. If you've trusted the wrong person, you might stop trusting anyone at all. From a single event, you create a narrative, and then live inside that narrative as if it were permanent truth. But the truth is, you're no longer the person who was wounded. You've grown, perhaps even become stronger than ever. But because you haven't realized it, you're still living with an outdated identity. That's why you feel conflicted. Part of you wants to move forward while another part keeps pulling you back. It's not that you don't want growth. It's that you haven't cleared the old energy to make space for something new. To free yourself, you don't need to fight the pain. You need to observe it with compassion and step out of the victim role. Don't ask, why did this happen to me? Ask, how long will I let this define me? Every time you choose forgiveness, not to forget, but to reclaim your inner freedom, you call your life force back. No one deserves to own your mind forever, not even those who once hurt you. Sometimes you resist letting go, not because the pain is valuable, but because you're unsure who you'll be without it. You've gotten used to carrying it as part of your identity, as a shield, as an excuse for hesitation. But the cost of keeping that pain is losing the chance to become a purer, brighter, freer version of yourself. You can't build a new life using fragments of old emotions. Detachment isn't a sudden shift. It's a series of small decisions repeated daily. Every time you feel pulled into the past, pause and ask, do I want to re-experience this emotion again? If the answer is no, take a deep breath, write a different thought, or simply change your physical state. Don't let the emotion run for more than 90 seconds, because after that, it's no longer emotion, it's you feeding it with agreement. Some pain needs time, but most pain only needs your willingness to begin walking away. What you need isn't someone to heal you. What you need is an uncompromising commitment. I will no longer allow the past to drain my life force. From the moment you make that choice, parts of you begin to wake up. Clarity returns. Your heart slowly opens. Your body feels lighter, and you begin to feel something you may have forgotten, that you can live and live fully again. You don't need to be strong overnight. You just need to be honest enough to say, it's time to stop carrying this pain as part of who I am. It is not you. It is simply a chapter in your story, and your story is still unfolding with every step you choose to take, lighter, brighter, and freer. Because when you detach from old pain, you're not just healing, you are reclaiming all the energy that was silently leaking away. True freedom doesn't come from everything being perfect. It comes from no longer being controlled by what no longer deserves a place in your life. And that has always been your choice. You can make it, starting today. Comparing yourself to others is the fastest route to feeling inadequate, doubtful, and disappointed. It doesn't just erode your confidence, it quietly drains your motivation little by little every day. Not because you lack value, but because you keep placing your worth on a scale weighed against things you don't fully understand about other people. And that scale, always tilted in their favor, will never give you a true sense of enough. You see someone successful on social media, someone who speaks fluently, lives in a beautiful home, has the ideal body, or achieves something you're striving for. Then you start reflecting on your own life. Same age, same starting point, same background. Why are they ahead and you're still stuck? From there, you begin to silently ask, am I falling behind? Maybe I'm not good enough. Is everyone moving forward except me? But you forget one core truth. You're comparing yourself to something that isn't real. What you see from others is only the surface. You don't see the struggle, the sleepless nights, the failures, or the pain hidden behind their smiles. You're measuring your raw, unfiltered self against someone's polished, edited version, and then deciding you're not good enough. That's not just irrational, it's profoundly unfair to yourself. When you're using the wrong ruler, every measurement will mislead you. Comparison doesn't just weaken your spirit. It steals the joy from what you already have. You stop appreciating your own small progress because that inner voice keeps whispering, others are further ahead. You stop feeling grateful when you do well because someone else is doing better. And in that exhausting race, you never feel enough. You're not moving forward out of passion, but out of fear that you're falling behind. And that's when burnout hits. Instead of growing with joy, you begin to act from fear. Instead of improving step by step, you rush to catch up with someone on a path that was never meant for you. And what happens when you run a race that isn't yours? You lose direction. You lose energy. Worst of all, you lose yourself. You don't need to be faster than anyone else. You only need to walk steadily and stay aligned with your own path. The only comparison worth making today is with the version of you from yesterday. If today you're more patient, more focused, more self-aware, you've progressed, even if no one notices. And that kind of quiet growth is what builds resilience. External comparison may give you short-term speed, but it slowly kills gratitude and peace, the two pillars that sustain long-term growth. Remember, everyone starts from a different place, walks a different road, faces a unique problem. Some were supported early. Others had to start below zero. Some matured quickly. Others took detours before finding the right track. The fact that you're not like them doesn't mean you're less than them. It only means you're different. And that difference should be honored, not hidden. Smart people don't let others' success make them feel small. They use it as inspiration, not as a standard to chain themselves to. They don't let their minds be hijacked by things they can't control. They understand that true freedom lies in living at your own pace, not someone else's speed. And if you're strong enough to live that way, you'll build a kind of success that's deeply personal, quiet, but unshakable. Your goal isn't to outperform someone else. Your real task is to clarify What kind of life do I truly want, and am I on the right path? When you return to yourself, compare only to yourself, adjust yourself, you no longer get swept up in the invisible race. You become grounded, and that grounding becomes the foundation for every real breakthrough. Maybe today you're not as far as you hoped, but if you're still showing up with good habits, being honest with yourself, and taking action even when no one sees, you're already ahead of most. No one can measure you by quick results. What truly matters is whether you're staying in rhythm with your own life. And that only becomes possible when you refuse to compare. From today on, stay aware of how you feel when you see someone succeed. Learn to turn envy into inspiration. Remind yourself, I don't need to be like them. I need to be better than I was yesterday. And if you keep moving forward little by little, you'll arrive exactly where you're meant to. Not through haste, but through strength. Because in the end, comparison doesn't make you stronger. It only makes you forget why you started. And when you forget that, you'll keep running without knowing where you're going. Don't let someone else's shadow block your own light. Return to your own road and walk it like you know this truth. No one else can live the one and only journey that is yours. No one in this world shares your exact journey. No one is born into the same background with the same psychology, struggles, energy, beliefs, and inner limitations as you. That doesn't make you misplaced. It makes you extraordinary. And yet, ironically, what makes you extraordinary is often what you try to hide, because you keep trying to live in a way that looks just like everyone else. And the moment you abandon your own rhythm to mimic someone else's life, you begin to lose your greatest personal power, your sense of self-location. You weren't born to replicate anyone's path. Maybe others found success at 25 and you're still figuring it out at 35. Maybe they discovered their passion in college and you've pivoted after multiple failures. Maybe they started early and moved quickly while you took the long road, where you learned things the straight path could never teach. And all of it is valid. All of it is necessary. There is no standard shortcut, no milestone you must hit on time. You're not late. You're just on a different road. Society loves to outline fixed timelines, how old you should be in college, when you should graduate, when to get married, how long it should take to be financially stable, what's normal. But you are not a pre-programmed product. You're a living being, adjusting, exploring, learning to understand yourself amid a noisy world full of expectations. And real maturity begins the moment you're bold enough to say, I choose my own path, even if it doesn't look like anyone else's. It's easy to feel like you're falling behind when you look around. Others have homes, cars, careers, milestones you haven't reached. But you don't see what they sacrificed. You don't see their lonely nights, their breakdowns, what they missed to get what you now admire. And more importantly, you don't know if those things even make them truly happy. Sometimes what you think you want is just what society told you is desirable, but it doesn't fit your nature. Your journey doesn't need to be understood by others. It only needs to be fully lived by you. That begins the moment you stop envying, stop chasing, stop comparing. When you turn inward and ask, what do I truly want? What feels aligned with who I really am? Am I living by my own voice or someone else's? When you're honest with those questions, you don't just live more clearly, you live more authentically. And once you live authentically, you stop rushing. You stop forcing yourself into someone else's schedule. You give yourself permission to move slowly but steadily. You start seeing value in every experience, even the winding detours. Because everything that happens to you has a purpose, even if you don't see it yet. The detours don't make you late for life. They're preparing you more deeply for who you're meant to become. People often praise breakthrough moments, but forget that sustainability is what takes you the distance. You don't need to race. You don't need to prove. You don't need to outperform. You just need to be steady. And steadiness comes from knowing You don't need to be like anyone else. You only need to live in tune with your own rhythm, stay loyal to your daily disciplines, be true to your core values, and never betray yourself for external expectations. People who live like that, though often misunderstood at first, are the ones who never regret it in the end. Your journey is unique because you are the only one who's lived your exact experience. Every lesson, every wound, every stumble is shaping a version of you that no one else can duplicate. Don't waste your life trying to be a flawless copy of someone else when you were born to be an irreplaceable original. The more honest you are with yourself, the easier it is for the world to recognize you. But if you keep acting like someone else, you'll get lost in the crowd, and even you won't know who you are anymore. Maybe you're not the best, the fastest, or the most well-known, but you can be the most faithful to your own path, and that brings a peace no outer success can replace. Give yourself permission to start over if needed. Be brave enough to choose the unfamiliar path if your heart points that way. And remember, the more aligned you are with yourself, the more the right opportunities will find you, without force. Don't be afraid to feel different. That difference is your fingerprint. That rhythm is your anchor. And the moment you dare to live honestly on your own terms, you'll naturally rise above the noise. No rushing, no proving, no pleasing. Just a firm grip on the wheel of a journey only you were meant to drive. Because your path is one of a kind, and it doesn't need to look like anyone else's. It only needs to feel true to your heart. The rest, time will take care of. A true decision doesn't happen in a moment of excitement or inspiration. It's not born from a burst of motivation after a powerful video or a life-changing book. A true decision is made in that quiet, confronting moment when you realize you have no other option but to move forward no matter the cost. It arrives when you burn every exit behind you and leave yourself with only one direction: forward. Many people believe they've made the decision to change. They declare new goals, promise discipline, vow to break bad habits, pursue passions, but deep down, they still leave a few doors cracked open. Some safe plan B, some quiet just in case I fail exit, and it's these escape routes that hold them back. They move forward with a let's see how it goes attitude instead of I must make it happen. They haven't burned the bridge. And that unburned bridge is exactly what keeps them tethered to their old identity. You can't start a new journey with half a heart. You can't transform your life with a trial mindset. Life doesn't reward those who merely dip a toe out of their comfort zone, then pull it back. It demands full immersion, your mind, your actions, your energy. And that only begins with a decision that cannot be reversed. Not I'll try, but I will. If I have to crawl, I will reach that place. When you make a real decision, your entire nervous system shifts. Your brain rewires itself because it receives a command. There's no other option but to succeed. When you place yourself in a position where there's no turning back, your energy explodes in ways you've never seen before. Ideas emerge that you never thought of. Your persistence, resilience, and grit awaken not because you're superhuman, but because you've stopped giving yourself excuses. A real decision is the breaking point between your old life and your new one. It's your declaration of war against every excuse, every circumstance, every mood swing. You act even when unmotivated. You stay committed even when no one's watching. You keep going not because it's easy, but because you no longer allow yourself to go back. Look at anyone who has built lasting success, and you'll find a moment in their story when there was no way back. Someone quit their job to start a business with no savings. Someone walked away from a toxic relationship, even though it meant loneliness ahead. Someone radically changed their lifestyle to save their health, even if it meant letting go of habits they'd held for decades. They didn't wait to be ready. They didn't wait for certainty. They chose and then became the person who matched that choice. The issue is never what you want. It's how far you're willing to commit. everyone wants. But making a decision and never turning around, that's different. Only when you close every back door will you generate enough force to open the one in front of you. Life always respects those who move without hesitation. It only gets serious with you when you get serious with yourself. From today, review all the things you've called your goals, your dreams, your vision. Ask yourself, have I truly made the decision or just imagined it? Am I living as if I have no plan B, or have I left escape routes just in case it gets too hard? Am I truly willing to pay the price, or am I still waiting for perfect conditions? You don't need perfect conditions. You need a real decision, one that makes you sit with yourself and say, whether people understand or not, no matter the obstacles, no matter the emotional ups and downs, I'm doing this, and I'm doing it to the end. No applause needed, no witnesses, just deep self-respect, the kind that makes you keep a promise to yourself when you have a decision like that. Every small action gains weight. You no longer act for show, for guilt, or for others' approval. You act because you've chosen, and you're keeping your word. There is no greater barrier than a lack of conviction, and no catalyst stronger than a true decision, one that leaves no way back. In the end, you can live with 1,000 untouched possibilities, or live fully on the one path you've chosen and committed to. Doors don't swing open when you knock gently. They burst wide only when you throw everything you have into them. And that kind of all-in force doesn't come from motivation. It comes from a firm decision. Either you become your highest self, or there's nothing left to discuss. Many people believe they failed because they weren't talented enough. But the brutal truth is this: they didn't lose due to a lack of ability. They lost because they didn't have the determination to stay the course. Talent can be developed. Skills can be learned. Experience can be accumulated. But without the will to stand your ground when things go wrong, all of that becomes wasted potential. Life doesn't favor the smartest. It favors the most persistent. It's not the person who starts the strongest who wins, but the one who refuses to give up midway. You once had a clear goal. You once dreamed boldly. You once started with fire in your heart. But life threw some punches, some delays, some disappointments, some setbacks with no name. And you gave up, not because you couldn't do it, but because you simply stopped trying. The moment you quit, you lost something you were fully capable of achieving if only you had taken one more step. No one stopped you, except you. Look closely at the people who truly create results. They're not always exceptionally talented, but they have one thing most don't: irrational persistence. They don't let emotions dictate action. They don't start when it's exciting and quit when it's hard. They keep showing up, even when no one believes, even when there's zero proof of success, because deep down they've already decided, I won't stop until this becomes real. That's the difference. You don't need to know every step to begin. You just need the commitment not to stop when things are unclear, because most great journeys begin in the dark. There's no map, no guarantee, only a person walking forward with nothing but faith and sheer willpower. The more you walk, the clearer it gets. The more you commit, the more you grow. And the deeper your resolve, the closer you get to results. The issue is not talent. It's the depth of your determination. Success doesn't belong to the casually interested. It belongs to the deeply committed. You don't need to shout your ambitions. Just quietly do the work. Every day without pause. You don't need to look strong. Just keep showing up when you most want to hide. You don't need to prove your toughness. Just keep your promises to yourself, especially when no one is watching. That silent consistency is the foundation of everything lasting. Remember, no one builds something great by stopping and starting over every time it gets hard. It's uninterrupted repetition that creates solid results. And every time you want to quit, ask yourself, have I truly gone to the edge yet? Or have I just tasted discomfort and assumed it was the end? If you haven't given everything, don't say you've lost. Determination isn't a feeling, it's a decision. You choose to stay committed even when you see no progress. You choose to move forward even when your mind is filled with doubt. You choose not to quit even when no one believes in you. That's not being heroic. That's what true maturity looks like, because only the mature know that results are born not from easy days, but from those brutal days, when you keep going without a single clear reason. Many still think that if they had just a bit more luck, more support, more talent, things would be different. But the truth is, they simply didn't stay long enough to outlast the hard part. Success doesn't arrive at the opening scene. It shows up in the middle, where most people have already left. And when you're the last one standing, the reward is yours, not because you were special, but because you endured longer than the rest. Stop asking, do I have enough talent? Start asking, do I have enough resolve? Because if your determination is strong enough, you will teach yourself, adapt, adjust, and grow. Eventually, your ability will catch up with your willpower, but if your will is weak, no matter how gifted you are, you'll still crumble under pressure. You're far stronger than you think, but you'll never know it if you keep quitting halfway. Every ounce of your power only reveals itself when you push yourself into the zone of no other choice but forward. And from there, you'll enter a territory you've never explored. Not out in the world, but deep within yourself. That's when it becomes clear. You never failed because you lacked ability. You simply never gave it your all. This world doesn't lack opportunities. It lacks people who can endure long enough to turn those opportunities into real outcomes. You don't need to be born extraordinary. You just need to decide not to back down. And when you hold on to that resolve through the entire journey, you'll realize success isn't a luxury. It's the inevitable result for those who never stop. Most of the bitter failures in life don't come from ignorance, but from moments when we lose our composure. You might be smart, talented, or full of brilliant ideas, but one impulsive reaction, one careless word, one emotional outburst in a moment of heat, and you could lose everything. That's why the true difference between a mature person and someone still governed by emotion is not in how much they know, but in their ability to respond instead of react. Reaction is instinct. Response is mastery. Instinct is immediate. Someone insults you, you lash back. Someone makes a mistake, you rush to criticize. Bad news arrives, you panic. You feel threatened, you tense up to defend your ego. This is survival mode behavior your brain learned long ago, but unless you retrain it, you'll stay trapped in fight or flight mode. You weren't born to merely react to life. You were born to lead it with intention. To do that, you must develop one crucial habit, the ability to pause. When you learn to pause between emotion and action, you're no longer a victim of circumstance. You become someone who gets to choose how to respond. And in that very pause, in that single breath you take, in that split second where you observe yourself and ask, will this response elevate or derail me? You reclaim the power to lead your life. A response comes from clarity, from depth, from conscious thinking, not from automatic defense. The one who responds is the one who conserves energy for what matters and lets go of what doesn't. The one who responds is the one who conserves energy for what matters and lets go of what doesn't. You don't need to react to everything. You don't need to explain yourself every time someone misunderstands. You don't need to strike back just because someone attacks you. Not every situation requires your control. Every time you react impulsively, you hand your power over to someone or something else. But each time you respond with intention, you remind the world and yourself that you are the one who chooses the tone, direction, and outcome of your life. That's real maturity. Those who react live under constant influence. of others, of fleeting emotions, of inner chaos. They are easily angered, easily swayed, easily provoked, and often lose what's truly important just to defend a fragile ego. But those who respond are different. They can remain silent when needed. They know when not to engage in senseless conflict. They know when to speak and when to listen. And it's this discipline that creates quiet authority, an inner gravity that commands respect without saying much. To respond instead of react, you must train two muscles, awareness and distance. Awareness allows you to witness what's happening, both outside and inside you. You notice the rise of anger, hurt, or disappointment as it begins to influence your decisions, and instead of letting it take over, you create a gap, a moment of separation. That gap is where your clarity returns. When you create enough space between stimulus and reaction, you give yourself the chance to choose a better, wiser response. No one is born knowing how to respond gracefully, but anyone can train this like a muscle. Each time you hold back a harsh word, you're strengthening your calm. Each time you write out your frustration and breathe instead of yelling, you're building inner power. Each time you truly listen rather than interrupt to defend your point, you're cultivating depth. And each time you respond with compassion instead of anger, you become a higher version of yourself. Successful people aren't emotionless. They just don't let fleeting feelings destroy long-term values. They understand that one wrong response can ruin a relationship that took years to build. One rash decision can erase a lifetime of effort. One emotional slip can cause damage that can't be undone. So they choose to respond with wisdom, even in silence. If you truly want to grow, not just in mindset, but in stature, start by watching yourself. Every time something triggers you to react, ask, does this truly matter? What am I trying to protect, my ego or something more meaningful? And if you can take one step back, you'll often see that most of the things you used to react to so fiercely aren't worth your energy. To respond well, you must live with a clear mission, one that doesn't let petty distractions knock you off course. In the end, don't confuse strength with saying something sharp or clever. You are truly strong when you know what's better left unsaid. You don't need to win every meaningless argument. You need to win at building the person you're becoming. And the real victory belongs to the one who learns to command their mind before they ever try to control anything else. That's not just wisdom, it's ultimate power, the power of self-mastery. High performers aren't born different. They simply run on a different mental operating system than most people. While the majority let emotions, habits, and circumstances dictate their actions, high performers choose to reprogram their brains to operate like an ever-optimizing machine. The biggest difference isn't IQ. It's how they think. If you don't shift your thinking, you'll stay stuck in the same loop, reacting out of instinct, procrastinating out of habit, and ending with regret. To think like a high performer, you must first understand that your brain is not fixed. It's like software. And the software you run daily determines the results you get. If every morning you wake up asking, how do I feel today? Then you're letting emotions lead. But high performers ask a better question. What do I need to do today to get closer to my goal? A seemingly small shift, but it changes the entire direction of your life and the outcomes you achieve. Reprogramming your brain isn't manipulation. It's retraining. For years, you've unconsciously programmed yourself with internal scripts like, I'm not good enough. I don't have time. I don't know where to start. These scripts run quietly in the background, creating a sense of helplessness, even when you have enormous potential. High performers had these same doubts, but they chose to overwrite them with new beliefs. I can learn any skill I need. I control my time. To home small action each day moves me forward. They don't wait for motivation. They rebuild their operating system from the inside out. The fastest way to reprogram your brain is to change the questions you ask yourself each day. The brain is a search engine. It will answer whatever you ask. If you ask, why do I always fail? It will list all the evidence to prove you right. But if you ask, How can I grow just 1% today? Your brain will shift into solution mode. High-performance thinking doesn't come from forcing yourself to work harder. It comes from thinking more effectively, and that starts by taking control of your thought direction. Habits are also programming tools. High performers don't wait for inspiration to act. They build structures that compel them to show up even when they don't feel like it. They understand that repeated behaviors rewire neural pathways, forming new identities. They don't believe they're productive. They act as if they already are. Through consistent repetition, their brains adapt and eventually automate these behaviors as a new instinct. High performers also minimize decision fatigue. They don't waste energy on the trivial. Simple wardrobes, repeatable routines, clear priorities, and a quick no to distractions. It's not coldness, it's strategy. Every decision drains a bit of willpower, and if you don't control that drain, you'll have nothing left for what truly matters. They reprogram their brains to preserve clarity for decisions that move the needle. Another common trait among high performers is their mastery of interruption control. They don't let others dictate their schedules. They don't check email 10 times an hour. They block distractions before they arise and create deep focus windows long enough to access their brain's highest state. In those hours, they're not just working. They're in cognitive overdrive. That's the zone where breakthroughs, innovations, and creative leaps are born. You can't reprogram your brain without addressing your environment. High performers don't live in random settings. They engineer their spaces. They design their workstations, choose relationships that elevate them, limit exposure to useless information, and keep their minds clean from mental garbage. They're not stronger than you. They're simply pulled off course less often. That's why their brains stay sharp, responsive, and deeply focused on what matters. If you truly want to change how you operate, start by watching your everyday thoughts. Each time you hear yourself say, "I can't," replace it with, "I haven't yet, but I'm learning." Each time you feel the urge to procrastinate, ask, "What's the smallest action I can take right now?" Each time you get distracted, redirect with, "What is the one task that truly deserves my time today?" These micro reprogramming steps done consistently will reshape your entire mental operating system. And remember, you don't need to change everything in one day. High performers don't succeed through massive leaps, but through steady, intelligent refinements with a clear aim. They don't let their brains default. They teach them how to think, how to react, how to choose. And once the brain is reprogrammed correctly, it becomes their greatest ally, carrying them to levels others only dream of. So can you. Start today by choosing a different thought, taking a different action, and living like a true high performer. No lasting transformation begins with behavior. Every real change starts with identity. You can try to work harder, build more discipline, wake up earlier, but if deep down you still believe you're someone who gives up easily, lacks confidence, or isn't worthy, all those efforts will eventually fade. Because behavior is just the surface. Identity is the root. And if you don't change the root, you're only redecorating a temporary mask. Identity is the story you tell yourself about who you are. Every time you say, "I'm just the type who always procrastinates," you're not merely describing yourself, you're programming yourself. Each time you say, "I'm not good at speaking in public," you're building walls around an undeveloped ability. But the moment you shift your belief about your identity, you open the door for every higher version of yourself to emerge, because nothing is more powerful than a person acting in alignment with who they believe they truly are. Someone with a strong identity doesn't need to prove themselves. They simply live according to the core values they've deeply etched into their mind, that they are honest, disciplined, responsible, and constantly evolving. These traits don't come from reading books or watching videos. They are forged through hundreds of silent choices, keeping promises to themselves, facing uncomfortable truths, doing the right thing when no one is watching. Identity is the byproduct of consistent action, and those actions are what ultimately define you. If you often feel like you can't keep commitments or tend to quit midway, it's not because you're weak. It's because your identity isn't yet strong enough to hold you steady. Someone with a solid identity doesn't need to force themselves. Every action they take is a natural expression of who they already are. Just like a warrior doesn't need to remind himself to be brave. Bravery is simply part of the identity he carries. To rebuild your identity, start with this question: who do I want to become? And am I living like that person yet? Every behavior you repeat is a vote for your future self. When you focus, you cast a vote for being someone who has depth. When you keep a promise, you vote for being trustworthy. When you rise after failure, you vote for being resilient. These small daily ballots shape your identity, not hollow affirmations or fleeting motivation. Don't build your identity on the expectations of others. True identity must align with the values you personally hold sacred. Others may call you strong when you're tough. But if kindness is what you value, then your strength will show in your compassion, not your volume. Identity is not something to flaunt. It's what keeps you grounded when everything becomes uncertain. When others doubt you, when you fall short, when applause disappears, it's your solid identity that holds you upright in life's storms. Those with a clear identity are often quiet, but not easily shaken. They don't say, "I'll try my best." They say, "This is what I do." They don't worry about others' opinions because they know exactly who they are. They don't need to boast about success because how they live each day is proof enough of their inner strength. And that quiet certainty creates a gravitational pull. Others trust them, respect them, and want to become like them. Changing your identity isn't about pretending. It's about constant reaffirmation. If you want to become a disciplined person, start acting like one even before you fully believe it. Every time you follow through, you reinforce the new programming. Over time, your brain stops doubting and agrees, yes, this is who I am. And once you believe you're that person, the battle with old habits fades. Your new identity starts guiding your behavior effortlessly. If you want to change your life, don't start by trying to change everything. Start with answering one question: what would someone like me do in this situation? Once your identity is clearly defined, your choices become simpler. It's no longer should I or shouldn't I. It's someone like me doesn't do that. You don't need to decide every day. Your identity becomes your compass, and with that clarity, inner conflict begins to dissolve. In the end, a strong identity isn't a shield to protect you from pain. It's the ground you rise from when pain comes without losing yourself. It's what keeps you disciplined when no one's watching, and true to your values even when no one's validating you. Because when you know who you are, you stop fearing the loss of what's outside. Your strength is rooted within. And from that place, real change begins. And it is sustained not by bursts of motivation, but by the identity you've chosen and now live out each and every day.